wonderful good evening. Good evening. It is great to see so many of you out this evening. And without any further ado, let us go right ahead and begin. If I could invite you all to stand so we can go right ahead with the national anthem. Please take your seats. At this time, I'm going to welcome Christine Callender to the podium, and she will just lead us in a word of prayer.
I can speak. Okay, let's bow our heads wherever we are. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this day, for this opportunity, for this privilege, Lord, to be gathered here as a party within this beautiful parish of St. George. Lord, we ask that as we are gathered here, the things that are said and done here will be done to the honor and glory of your name and for the upliftment of our party and for the wider Barbados. Lord, as we are beginning, we ask that those who are still on their way here, that you will bring them in safety, and that at the end of it all, we'll be able to say it was good to be here. These things I ask through no other name but your dear Son's name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Christine. At this time, I'm going to invite Stephen Watson from the St. George North branch. Stefan, what did I say? Stefan Watson, my apologies, from the St. George North Committee, and he's just going to assist in welcoming everyone this evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Warm welcome to all who have come here to the joint zonal meeting between St. George North and St. George South here at White Rabbit Green St. George. A special and warm welcome to all those who are logging on online. Thank you for your attendance and your engagement this evening. Allow me to welcome the chairman again to introduce the first speaker.
All right, thank you so much, Stefan. So, good evening yet again. It is wonderful seeing all of you here. To those viewing online, thank you for being with us. And I would just like to share, just before I introduce the first speaker for the evening, in our passport, our Democratic Labour Party passport, it states that while public policy should aim to improve the lot of all citizens in the society, the content of that policy should always reflect a commitment to solve particularly the problem of youth, labor, women, the aged, the disabled, the unemployed, small business, and such other disadvantaged groups as may from time to time surface in Barbados. So as I welcome these speakers this evening, we're looking forward to their dissection of public policy. We're looking forward to their eloquent deliveries, their governmental prosecution. We're looking forward to their expose, one could say, of what they have been putting together for us this evening, which is promising to be exciting. Our first speaker, a woman of excellence. She's no stranger to us, and she has been with us now for a couple of years, some of which have been in the background, and she stepped out and she took up the role and the responsibility of spokesperson of education. She is happy and proud to be a part of this progressive DLP family. And she is continuing on from the women that have served in this party before, over the years. And she is paving the way for the young women that will come after her to serve in ministry under this Democratic Labour Party. Please help me welcome Melissa Savory Giddings.
Good evening, Democratic Labour Party family. Good evening, my dear loving people. It's good to be here with you this evening. It is good to be a part of the family of the right excellent Arrow Walton Barrow. It's a pleasure. When I think about this hero, Arrow Barrow, our hero, it makes me think about education. It makes me think about the reason I'm here. It gives me inspiration, because I'm thinking that without education, my life could have been way, way different. Anybody here have that same feeling, or it's just me? Without education, our lives could have been way different. Tyra, your life could have been different, right? All of us, we could have had different lives this evening, but we are here because of education, and not just education, but free education. My grandmother constantly reminds me, yes, my grandmother is still alive, 94 years old. And she will always say to me, you know, she only went as high as 7th standard. And we don't know what that is, right? You see, 94, that's the reason we don't know what that is. But she said she had to go to school barefoot. The only time she used to get a pair of shoes was around Christmas time and so on to go to church. But other than that, everybody had all 10 toes on the ground. That was normal. But because of education, we were able now to wear some shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, because of all these reasons, education is near and dear to me, and I'm sure education is near and dear to you. But it pains me this evening. If you look, you will see that I'm not even on your schedule for this evening. But I'm here because of the pain that I'm in. And I know that a lot of you are in pain, and if you listen to the call-in program over the week, you will hear the pain that a lot of people were in, because in the manner in which the Ministry of Education and this government treats its people. The Democratic Labour Party called and continues to call for the promised education reform this government had promised for 5 years now. And what they have called this week education reform is not a mere drop in the bucket. It depends on the bucket though, but the bucket that I'm thinking about is not a drop even in that, the smallest bucket. This government continues to show disregard for the teachers, disregard for parents, disregard for Barbadians as a whole. How can you call a meeting, an urgent meeting, the day before the meeting is supposed to take place, and they left everybody scrambling? Do we know how much people had to call in sick that day because they didn't have nobody to look after the children? Do we? But again, we don't care. Well, not we, but them. They don't care about what happens once they get what they want. That's all that matters. So they continue to just drop things on you. They started with the IDB survey. They came down the line, they talk about the grooming policy, the school nutrition policy, everything is just, hold on, this is what I want, you don't have any rights to question me, and that's because of democracy. Because they have all 30 seats, they believe what they say goes, and that's it. Don't ask me anything about it, it is final. So after talking about education reform for 5 years in secrecy, this urgent meeting was held. And from all reports, not my report, all reports, this is something that could have waited. What did the ministry have to offer at these meetings? A clipboard, piece of paper, until you get into groups and tell us what you want from education reform. Really? That's how it's done? That's what really happened? I couldn't believe that. No, I had to ask again, what really happened at this meeting? A clipboard, paper, get into groups and tell us what you want from education reform. And this is the government that tell you that it cares. This is the government that cares. Did anyone let the Ministry of Education know, because obviously we would have to let them know, that this is exam season, that there is CAPE and CXC, and that teachers are trying to prepare the children for these things? But again, haphazard, a government that hot and sweaty, haphazard, and that school could close because we didn't care what happened with UCXC and CAPE and all that kind of stuff. This is important to us, and we want school closed. Did anyone think to tell the teachers beforehand, we're going to be looking at education reform, probably come with some ideas, come with some nothing. Once again, nothing was done. So you had a last minute exercise in futility because nothing happened. Again, smoke and mirrors. Everything with this government, just smoke and mirrors. Did anyone tell the Ministry of Education that reform is more than just changing schools and calling them schools of excellence and academies and so on? What is excellence? Education reform is not simply a term you can just use loosely, because now we got a lot of catchphrases. Everything now is reform. And persons being assigned with no vision to manage thousands of dollars, being paid thousands of dollars to do what? Nothing. Education reform is an opportunity. This is one of the key ways that we can change the trajectory of our future, not just our future, but the lives of our children and their children. It's an opportunity to chart a new course. Don't let's only leave them with high amounts of debt to be repaid, because the government borrowing, so all you want to leave for our children and their children is debt. No, make sure that they have a proper, solid future. Now I have a number of questions to this knee-jerk reaction from this government. And I have the whole list here for you so you don't miss any. And if I miss some, you tell me what I missed and I will add it in, okay? What is the concept of excellence? What is excellence? What is excellent to you might not be excellent to me. So what is excellent? You may have a child that might only get 30 marks in an exam, but guess what? That might be excellent for that child because that child might only be getting 5 before. So what is excellence? We need to define certain terms before we just use them. Why are there not active democratic participation? So we're throwing out there to teachers now randomly to say we did something. This is what happens when you have a one-party country. What research was done? Where are the suggestions generated from? Again, haphazard. What research? Show us the research that was done and how you come up to all these conclusions. I'm hoping that somebody just didn't wake up one morning and pulled it out of a hat. What is the guiding philosophy? Now, I went to my mailbox to collect my paper this morning, and the document that I found in my mailbox showed that the reform that they have in mind is only going to start at 11 plus. So what is going to happen with nursery and primary school? That all need to be reformed as well? What has happened with teacher empowerment? Again, we are leaving teachers out of it and they're just hearing by the wayside. What is going to happen to sports? What about special needs education? This is a big one, and nobody's addressing it. Aren't these children allowed to learn as well? Can't they also do things as well because they're disabled in some way or the other? Yes, they can, and should be included in this reform. More talk, and no work. Put some money where the talk is. These children need help as well. And I have a 13-year-old, and they ask her, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And if y'all know your children, who they, I know. But at 14 years old, you're saying, based on this new reform that you've addressed, at 14 years old, you should be able to decide where you want to go for a school of excellence. I went to university, and I can tell you, even at university, some people still don't know what they want to do. They're just doing it. You know, I just need to get a degree, and then we'll figure out the rest from there. So what are we saying to our 14-year-olds? That you should be able to make a life-changing decision at 14? Parents, what about you? Are we saying that the parents don't count? Have we included the parents in this education reform? Why haven't their input been sought? Yes, we heard the voice of the NCPTA, but is that the voice of the parents? Do they speak on behalf of everyone? And most importantly, what about the voice of the children? Aren't they important? Are we doing this for ourselves, or are we doing this for them? Because if we're doing this for them, then we need to hear their voice as well. We had a lot of talk about the student councils as well. What's happening to the student councils? We wanted to put a senator and change the age and all kinds of things, but the student councils, you haven't even engaged the student councils to hear what they want. Aren't they supposed to be young and intelligent? What's happening there? Nothing, as usual, just a knee-jerk reaction, hot and sweaty, let me get it done. But you know what? About 2 weeks ago, I made some phone calls about our planned education reform sessions that we were having around the island. And I'm thinking word got out about what we were planning to do, and they decided, you know what, well, we can't be last. This is the thing, so we gotta be up front. So they're bound to do something quick to just be ahead of the Democratic Labour Party. But they could never be ahead of the Democratic Labour Party because we are the people who started this education, and we will see it through to the end. No, these proposed junior academies resemble, based on my research, what the USA call middle schools. But the middle schools in the US range from 11 to 13, while these academies at age 12 to 14, a mere 1 year difference. But did anybody do the research again to find out why middle schools were instituted? And to find out too that middle schools do not work? If they did, they would know that, and they would realize, don't just put things in place because the big, great America is doing it, so let's do it too. What's the reason behind this? Let us know why you're doing it, and let's see if it makes sense. So we're asking the Ministry of Education to please rethink this process. Go back to the drawing board and come again. If you want me, call me, I will come and help y'all, all right? But for a fee, because when they're paying people for nothing, so when they can pay me for something, you know? We are willing to help you. The Democratic Labour Party stands willing and ready to assist in this education process. Now, education reform in Barbados have not had any significant changes. Education on the whole has not had any significant changes in the last, how much ever years I was alive, probably plus more. But this government, this great almighty government, expect to have these changes done in 1 year, with rushed consultation. But you can't dump sweeping changes on the education system to say, look at me, look what I have done. Put my name on something and then open the building, or to say education reform was done under the great almighty. No, it's not about that. It's not about putting names on buildings. It's not about saying you're the person who did something. So education reform cannot be treated simply as a project that they put in a manifesto. It is not simply a tick in another box. It is about someone having, it is not about someone having and leaving a legacy. The damage will be catastrophic. Let us be firm. Let us ensure that we do things right. This hurried, ill-thought process is a blatant abuse of power. Anybody looking can see this is abuse of power. You pay the director, highly paid, I may add, For the last 5 years to come up with what? With this? For 5 years, this is all you can come up with? Have the right thinking, Barbadian values being thrown through the window? What's really happening in Barbados, and no one is speaking out, because I find that a lot of Barbadians are fearful. They are fearful to get up and say, this is not right. But we need to put fear aside and do what is right for our children. This government is seeing education reform as a project, much like the last education project everyone recalls called one EduTech. Anybody recall EduTech? Was it a success? Who was the minister at the time of EduTech? Anybody know? And you all really expect that this government, this Barbados Labour Party government, can really champion the cause on education? Come on, come on. Someone needs to let the government know that a progressive country is one which embraces education. This may be hard for them to understand, and we know why. But some schools still don't have Wi-Fi. And if they do have Wi-Fi, it's only in one classroom. They can't download this, or to go over here and can't print that. In order to implement proper education reform systems, they need to start putting the cart before the horse and get simple things up and running, like printing, getting registered, getting rid of termites in buildings, getting the grants. Every year you get a grant, but you have to wait probably by the time it's school year and you know getting the grant. In the meantime, what? You're going to be pulling money, teachers are going to be pulling money out of their pockets to ensure that the school can continue running. Now let's get all of these things fixed. Let's bring what we have to an acceptable standard in order to chart the way forward. If we don't bring that to a standard, then what are we going forward on? Now, some of you may ask, so the Democratic Labour Party is opposed to reform? No, we are not. Of course we are not. But we believe that in order for a reform to take place, a better method must be meted out. Let's do it properly. I always come along here, be doing something, do it properly, or not at all, leave it out. If you can't do it properly, just don't bother your head about it, leave it. So let me put me back in it, let me put my elbow in it, my knee in it, and make it happen the right way. Now, one of the ways that they had listed is abolishing the Barbados Secondary School 11+ entrance exam, right? And we heard the director of reform, we heard from the silent minister of education, we heard the previous minister of education, the prime minister, everybody talking about removing the 11+. But when you move something, you should put back something in its place. So what are we going to do? So the document I dropped into my mailbox this morning said that it's going to be based on where you live. So if we are putting children based on where they live, we're going to still have some challenges with this situation. So me and you know that this wouldn't work. Where is it equality in this? Are we now saying to parents, if you want your child to go to Queen's College, you need to spend $40 a square foot to ensure your child can go there? I'm just asking for a friend. Are we pushing classism? Are we? But this government is known for that, so that is nothing new. I'm not even going to go any further to talk about this 11+, because I can go on and on about this for the entire day. But my biggest question is, where is the minister? Every time I come to speak to you, I have to answer this question. Where is the minister? Anybody see Kay recently? But is she really the minister though? I think Ramona should be elevated to the minister, because Kay obviously is showing over and over she's incompetent. She can't do her job. The minister is clearly out of her realm. Where is the data from the IDB survey that we were supposed to get? We don't know. Where is the report from the recently conducted assessment? The test assessment. Has the measures been put in place? Because remember, they said that this assessment was supposed to be done, and then once that was done, then we will know what we are moving forward with. There's nothing, nothing. Where are children weak? What's the results of this test? What are the strategies that come about after the test was conducted? There's a number of unanswered questions and continue each time more and more unanswered questions when it comes to this government. We need to stop playing politics. This government needs to stop playing politics with education and with our children and with their future. Now, they also talk about reimagining. So this big no catch word, the new catch word now is reimagine. And to truly reimagine the education system in this country, we need to involve the voices of the people. Reimagine. Education reform requires massive changes from fixing school plans to curriculum changes, to availability of educational tools, to retooling to new industries. It has to be tied to where industry and economies are going to thrive. That has to be balanced with monetizing aspects of our country that are unique and stand to shape our economy moving forward. Technology, just like the one we have here, streaming, all of this is a $1 trillion industry. How do we help our children to operate and be ready to get into that space in this ever-growing expansion? How? This government wants us to reimagine. Well, reimagine with me. Because when I reimagine education under a Democratic Labour Party government, like in 1966, when our great leader, the father of this great party, reimagined this country and used free education to turn this country from simply a former copy of a formidable state, I see a country, its citizens, its children flourishing, school plants being repaired, classrooms adequately staffed, Wi-Fi access across all classes. A sense of security is felt across the schools as teachers and principals are happy, as they are appointed in their roles and enjoying their work. Children enthusiastic about learning and being able to find employment after they leave school. I see a future where in the newspaper we are not advertising to bring in plumbers from outside this island because we don't have any here. Reimagine that with me. Can you see that with me? Can you join me in my vision? Can you reimagine a country where we are thriving, where education is thriving? Am I hearing you? Can you reimagine with me? So if we are using the catchphrase reimagining, let's reimagine what is good for our country, for our children, and in reality, for ourselves. Before I go, I wanted to address another issue that has been bubbling. You know, when your belly hurting, you know how it's be bubbling and you feel like you want to go, but sometimes you may go and nothing happens. But before I go, and that is not to go, but to leave the platform, I want to address, again, the abuse of power that we continue to see under this current administration. Teachers are being penalized for exercising their constitutional right and being victimized by this government. I heard, again, my grandmother old, like I told you all from the beginning, and I always hear what good for the goose, good for, you're young, but you know, what good for the goose, good for the gander. And I want to know why after a ruling by the courts of Barbados, by the courts, teachers, we had 2 teachers being reprimanded, 1 teacher being returned to school, and the other still out in the cold trying to find out what is happening. What is happening? Why is no one standing up and speaking out for this teacher? Why is this teacher struggling? Why is the teacher sending email, and can't get an answer? And like I said earlier, this is the fear that the government has placed in all of us, that no one is willing to rise to the occasion and say, this is not right. But that fear is not in me this evening, and I'm saying this is not right. Let that teacher return to school. Let that teacher function in his role. Democratic Labour Party, rise up. Now is the time to rise up. Gird your lions and fight the good fight. Stop the injustices from happening. Who knows? You may be next. So rise up now. So when it is your turn, we will rise up as well and assist you. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Comrade Melissa. Perfect. Thank you so much, Comrade Melissa. If I have to say one thing, I would probably say, show me your education system and I'll show you your future. And I took from a lot of what she was saying, that is, you could almost say like a mirage of the type of Barbados that we could possibly see, and that is dependent on us. That's dependent on us, and we need to join with Melissa, ultimately along with voices like hers, regardless of sometimes where the voices come from. Because we at no point in time do we want to be complicit. Not in commission, but in omission, because we could have said something, regardless of where the overreach has been coming from. You know, Melissa was, she was sharing about some of the things that the US has been implementing. And many of the things that they have done are good. But we have to be careful with how we implement, because there are a lot of things as well that are not good that they, have in their system that we simply don't want to adopt in our systems. So that's where Melissa now, and we as the Democratic Labour Party, we become the watchmen and the watchwomen on the wall for our children, to be ready to go to war for our children, to demand the best that we could in education. You know what? We have to give them some credit in the attempt to reform, and that is good. Absolutely. But good can always be better. And we will stand together and call them to a place of being better. And that's what she was attempting. So Melissa, thank you. Because I strongly believe that if we can't get it right in our education system, we can be in a lot of trouble. Because that is the information that we're disseminating to the young minds that are so impressionable that grow up to adults like us and create more problems on top of the problems on top of the problems. According to our passport, I want to echo the reality that political power should be used to secure the evolution of a more just society. Amen? And we spoke about, a knee-jerk reaction. And perhaps come next election, there may be a knee-jerk reaction, if you understand what I'm saying. I think Barbados has recognized the error that a lot have committed to, right, in the past election and the election before. And I think we're going to see a shift and a change come next election. That is a fact. The type of shift that we see is dependent then on us as a political party, and it's dependent on you that are viewing and those that are listening to us this evening, because I just want to reinforce the type of Barbados that we want to see is dependent on all of us listening this evening. If you can hear me and you've heard Melissa and you'll hear the next speaker, the Barbados that we want, we determine. We are the champions of our own fate. So in that spirit, I want to welcome our next presenter, a gifted young lady who realized her passion for law from the age of 12, and since then, she has been working relentlessly to make her dreams a reality. As a matter of fact, she was planning to call in program a couple of times to share beer licks. So you know some licks can share tonight. She attended the Barbados Community College, me too, right? Great institution, just sticking that in there. And I want you to help me to welcome someone, as I mentioned, that is coming after persons like Irene, Maxine, Melissa. We need more women in politics, yes? I strongly believe that we need more women in politics, and I'm happy to see the persons that are coming and standing boldly this evening to share their vision for the Barbados that they want to see, to prosecute the government where necessary, and also to commend them where they're also going right. So please help me welcome Comrade Tyra Trotman.
Pleasant good evening to everyone. I hope you are blessed. I am blessed. I am grateful. Once again, I'm honored to be given the opportunity, to be given this platform, to express myself, express the concerns of young Barbadians, to advocate for the rights of Barbadians on the whole. Now, I've made a couple of public appearances thus far, and I have been given the reputation of being peppery and fiery and sharing licks, as you heard this evening. But I would like to start off this evening on a different tone. I'm here to speak to you about the Child Protection Bill, which is now in debate. I'm sure it will soon be passed because we know how this government operates. But I would like to start by commending them. Yes, you heard right. Commending them for taking the time to address the situation of child abuse, to address the situation of child neglect. As you heard Minister Humphreys say, there are over 600 and something cases which are being reported, which he says puts us at 2 cases per day. And these are just the reported cases. There are many, many more which go unreported. And we know this is because usually the abusers, the perpetrators, are family members. They're persons who these young children trust. A lot of the time, when you hear a child complain or make an allegation or an accusation of abuse, sometimes they're not believed because it's too shameful. We don't want to bear or hear the truth. So there's that. So I want to start off by commending them for taking the approach to address the situation. However, and this is where I'm getting into my licks now, it was done incorrectly. You heard Comrade Melissa speak this evening about putting the cart before the horse. You heard Comrade Melissa speak this evening about a lack of research. And this is not only in the field of education, but this seems to be a theme which keeps happening all the time with this government. They're doing things, as Melissa called it, a knee-jerk reaction, hot and sweaty. They're not taking the time to do the research. So that is the number one thing that I found wrong with this bill. And I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. Now that's the lawyer in me. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. And one of the things I found is that a lot of the language inside of the bill is making things unlawful, making things illegal. For example, they're saying shouting at your child is now a form of verbal abuse. However, they have not taken the time to do the research to find out why. And this is a recurring theme. Why? The root. You heard me speak a couple Sundays ago about crime. And I identified to you 3 areas which I think, and I strongly believe, are the roots of crime. You heard me talk about the lack of education, not in the sense that we don't have free education in Barbados, but our education is not diverse. It does not cater to a wide majority of students because everyone is not an academic. You heard me speak of the lack of opportunities, the fact that the youth don't have enough opportunities. Now, just today, yes, I was on Twitter. I tweeted about the fact that the government is asking retirees to come out of retirement because they're saying unemployment is at an all-time low, but nobody ain't applying for jobs. And I had to sit down and I said, but wait, every single day I hear young people complain about not being given the opportunity to work. I hear young people complain about when I apply for a position, they're saying they want X amount of years experience. But how do I get the experience if I'm never given the opportunity to start? If I'm not given the training? So when I hear the reports coming out to the government, and I open my eyes and I look around me and I see what is happening, I wonder, am I living in a different Barbados? So here yet again, we have a situation where research was not done. The question why was not asked. So instead of saying, parents, you are abusive for shouting at your child. Parents, you are being neglectful for leaving your children unattended. Parents, you are being abusive because you cannot afford 3 meals a day. Parents, you are being neglectful because your children may not have on the newest clothes. They may unfortunately have to walk around with holes in their clothes. And we're pointing a finger and blaming the parents instead of asking why. What can we do to help? Is it a situation where there's an absent parent? Is it a situation where there's mental health factors? Is there substance abuse? Do you need counseling? Do you need therapy? Do you need after-work care? These things are missing from the legislation. The next thing I want to address is the fact that the language of the bill needs to be more clear. It needs to make it more clear that removing a child from its home, his or her home, is a last resort. In the legislation, I did not find any section which clearly states we will only remove the child from the home in the most serious of circumstances. Because it is a draconian, what we call as lawyers, a draconian measure. It needs to be dealt with very, very carefully. You do not want a situation where you could have contributed in different ways, but you've removed the child from the home. So instead of, as I mentioned before, providing economic assistance, social factors assistance, you're removing the child from the home. We have to be very, very careful when we do this. The next thing I would like to say is that the bill makes the offenses triable summarily. Now, for the layperson out there, triable summarily means that it's under the jurisdiction of the magistrate's court. Now, I just came out of a criminal justice symposium not too long ago where it was said that the magistrate courts right now are dealing with a 16,000 backlog of cases. Not 16, not 6,000, 16,000, and that's the backlog alone. This does not encompass the active cases. So why are we putting more strain on the magistrate courts? Why are we putting more strain on the magistrates? You've heard the magistrates complain about not having security of tenure. You've heard them complain about not being afforded the same luxuries that high court judges are afforded. For example, they don't have the same infrastructures. Magistrates are still writing their notes. You have to pause every 2 lines, 2 sentences to wait for the magistrate to finish right. That should not be happening. Magistrates do not have the wonderful facilities other than the one that was just refurbished, like the high court judges do. A lot of the time they have to sit down and be hot and sweaty because they're not operating in a climate that makes it conducive for them to work. We still have a lot of outdated systems in place for the magistrates. So if you're going to give the magistrates more work and put a heavier workload on the magistrate courts, then it is only fair if you also look at the problems the magistrates are dealing with. In addition to that, once again, we have a lack of research. If you are saying we have a 16,000 backlog of cases, why on earth would you put in a legislation that we're going to give you more work? It makes no sense. Persons are complaining of having to return to court every 28 days, every 3 months to get an adjournment. Every time you go to court, you hear adjourned, adjourned, adjourned. Do you want a situation where there is an actual child who's being abused and who's made a report, or someone knows of the abuse and they have made the report, and it sits down in the magistrate court for years? Do you want a situation where magistrates, or rather victims of abuse, these children, go into the system and complain at the age of, let's say, maybe 9, and by the time it's dealt with, they're already adults? There's a saying that goes, justice delayed is justice denied. We do not want a situation like this for our children. So once again, there was a lack of research. More research needs to be done before we put these policies in place. The other thing I would like to address is the issue of parental rights. And Comrade Felicia is going to go into it a little bit more in detail. But when I read the legislation, I realized that they're undermining parental rights. Now, yes, we want to protect children. Children belong to the vulnerable class of society, just like the elderly, just like the sick, just like the poor. However, when we're dealing with children, we also have to deal with their parents. You cannot give children more rights, but at the same time, take away the parental rights. It does not work like that. There needs to be a balancing exercise. It needs to be weighed. It needs to be proportional. You cannot replace the parent with a director. It does not work like that. So if you're going to give the child more rights and say children need to be heard, yes, of course they do. In the same breath and in the same token, you cannot take away the rights of their parents. And that needs to be made clear in this legislation. Now, the other problem that I found with the Child Protection Bill, and you heard Melissa speak about it in terms of referencing the middle schools, and the fact that it seems as though Barbados has picked up this trend where they would like to be more like America. But there are certain things that America should not be a role model for. And one of them is this thing about childcare centers and foster homes. Although it ideally may be a nice thing when you put it on paper, you have to look at what actually happens in real life, the reality of it. Now, you do not want a situation where you are taking children out of their homes, away from their parents, away from persons who may love them, and putting them to be with a stranger, or even worse, a center with staff, with a bunch of strangers. Now, I am not saying that this is the situation for all situations, because at the end of the day, I said it should be a draconian measure. So there are situations where it would be justified taking the child out of the home if it is that they're truly being abused and truly being neglected. But what happens where a parent is trying, but unfortunately is not measuring up to the standards because of other social or economic factors? You're taking this child away from a parent who's actively trying and putting them in the care of a stranger. When you look at America with their foster homes and their centers, what happens? What really happens? We've heard the horror stories. You're taking a child out of a bad situation and putting them in a potentially worse situation. You're putting them in centers with a bunch of strangers who can just as good abuse them, who can just as good neglect them. You're putting them in foster homes with strangers they know nothing about, who can, in the privacy of their own home, abuse these children, sexually assault them, rape them, beat them, all of these different types of things. You are not addressing this. I saw nowhere in the legislation where it gives conditions to be a foster parent, or conditions, pre-qualifications to be a staff member at the centers. I'm not seeing it. So this is my recommendation. You should put something in place where it says you have to be employed, so you don't look at the child as a way of income, a check. which is what happens in America. These foster parents take care of these children because they know every month a check is coming in. They don't care nothing about the children, but they want another form of income. We do background checks. So just like how you need a background check to go and get a gun license or whatever else, you should do a background check on these persons, both foster parents or potential foster parents, and members of staff for these centers. You have to make sure that their mental is okay, because a lot of them take out their own issues on children. Make sure they're not messed up themselves, because you're dealing with a special kind of child. You're dealing with a child who needs special care and special attention, a child who has been traumatized. You need the training to do that. You can't just willy-nilly decide, I can go and deal with a child like that. So you need to put in place as well training for these persons who are interested in becoming staff or foster parents. I have not seen the legislation address that. Now in America, as I said, you've heard the horror stories. You've heard children talk about how when they went through the system, from the time they entered the system, they were being abused. They were being sexually assaulted, they were being raped. And then a lot of the time, that then transcends into their adult life. A lot of them become prostitutes. A lot of them turn to the life of crime. Because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with abuse, you're dealing with mental trauma. When you're dealing with mental trauma, you're dealing with things like an attack on self-confidence. You're dealing with things like violent outbursts in the adult life, because these are things that happen that you have to keep inside because you're a child. You feel like nobody's going to respect you or listen to you. So then you have a situation where it is directly impacting on productivity. So when I said a couple of Sundays ago that crime is not about just saying we're going to have a CARICOM warrant and we're going to put more judges in place to help tackle the issue of crime, but we need to look at the mental health factor of things. This is what I was talking about. At the end of the day, a tree don't just start growing from the leaves. A tree starts to grow from its roots. So deal with it from the roots, from the root level. The fifth thing that I thought, and it struck me as a lawyer, the provisions, they gave the director too much discretion. They gave the director too much power. Now, we as lawyers, those of us who are lawyers in here, know that when a provision is what we call ambiguous, which means it's not clear, it's wide, it's too general, it leaves it open for interpretation. Now, the criminal lawyers know this best, because we find the loopholes in the law, and we do so a lot. Stretch it. So quick, so you have a loophole that was this small, and we find a way to stretch it, so by the time we're done, the jury has no choice but to come back and say not guilty. Do you want a situation like that for our children? We do not. Where the legislation is so ambiguous that anybody could come and interpret it and argue their interpretation, where the judge has no choice but to say, okay, I understand. It has to be this way. We don't want that. Let us get it right from the onset, not when it gets into the courtrooms. Please, not with our children. Now, the final point I would like to make, and the BLP people can come after me for this, so I already know. So let me brace. You cannot blame the public. You cannot blame persons in Barbados for not trusting you, especially when it comes to our children, because you have shown you cannot be trusted. Look at the IDB test. Combra Melissa brought it up, but let me go even further. I was at the rally. I spoke at the rally. I spoke as an attorney at law because I read the Data Protection Act, and it was breached because in the act it specifically said that in order for you to get any sort of private information, personal information from a minor, the parents have to have consented. You cannot have been tricked either into giving the personal information. No, they were tricked. The children were tricked because it was labeled a pre-science computer test. But when you read the content of the test, it asked about your sexual orientation, your intrusive thoughts, if you were exposed to alcohol, abuse, all kind of personal questions that breach really and truly your right to privacy and family life. And then it was administered without the consent of parents. Michael Ashley Casey was hired to look into this. He was doing his job. He asked for the report to be given to him, disclosed to him, which, by the way, he has a right to, because you have a right to disclosure. But he was told, no. An investigation was done into the report, into the IDB test. There was a report done, and this is the report I'm talking about. Up to now, nobody know what happened to the report? Up to now, we do not know what are the findings of that investigation. It just disappeared. But I'm here to tell you, I have not forgotten. I remember. I do not have amnesia. I remember. So how can you ask persons in Barbados, parents in Barbados, to trust you with their children when this is the folly you're doing? It is not right. And that's where I can end my blows tonight. But I hope you've listened, and I hope you understand. I want you, and I encourage you, so when you not only stand up, but when you go home, research. Type it in on Google. You can see it coming. It's on the page of Parliament. But if you just type it in into Google, it will come up, the Child Protection Bill. I am sure most of you in here are parents. Read it. Don't get frightened from it. If there are words you don't understand, because the law, language of the law could be very technical, get a dictionary. Don't be afraid. Don't let them intimidate you. Read it and come to your own conclusions. Don't just take it from me. Go and read it. See what you think about it for yourselves. And if you don't agree with it, do not be afraid to voice your concerns. Do not be afraid to stand up for your rights. And you will hear me say this at every single meeting. You are powerful. All of you in here have the right to vote. That right to vote is powerful. That is why when elections come around, you will see them come begging for the votes. Because it's very, very powerful. Use it wisely. Don't just give away your vote willy-nilly so. Research your candidates. Look at them. Judge them. Make them accountable. Don't just vote for them because they're under the party name and the party name look pretty. Look at each candidate. You do not vote for a party. You vote for a representative. And that is the mistake a lot of persons in Barbados are making. And that culture of politics needs to change. Do your research. Don't be like the Barbados Labour Party. Do your research. Thank you.
So Barbados, that change begins with us. That change begins with us. So it means making an intentional effort after hearing to say, you know what, I'm going to go do the research that she suggested. And as she said, call her. As a matter of fact, her number is 2. No, I'm just kidding. She said to look it up and do your own research. But all seriousness, I agree with that 100%. But you know, it speaks to a bigger issue of competence over character, where we should have character over competence. You know, your character is something that you just have, but competence is often something that you can learn, you can improve, like your IQ. That's something that you can build on, and that's something that has been missing for decades. Let's get it right. Let's get it right as the Democratic Labour Party. Let's get it right as Barbadians, as Barbados. We can do better. And we will do better together, as we just heard from our comrade. And we know that because you have to ask ourselves, well, what about the members of government that broke the law? You know, we talk about 2 Barbadoses, but should there be? Should be 2 or 3, 1 for John and 1 for Tyra, 1 for Melissa, 1 for me, and so on? Or should we have one standard by which everyone is accountable, by which everyone is judged?
One equality.
One equality. That, to me, that works. That works. Has always worked and will continue to work. But I want to just before I invite the next speaker, someone that has worked tirelessly in the field of philanthropy. She is a seasoned lecturer and has served as a human rights expert in various capacities within civil and government organizations. This next bright individual has received numerous awards for her work in community development and activism. Her weekly articles and commentaries appear regularly in regional and local newspapers throughout the Caribbean. I first met her, I think it was last year, when she was doing the lunchtime lectures, me personally, at the Democratic Labour Party headquarters, and I have grown to appreciate her delivery and keen, methodical approach in her execution. So let us continue the execution, the prosecution, and the exposure tonight. Please help me welcome Felicia Dujon.
I know I'm a little short. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Here we are again. Here we are again. So I came with all my research so that we can have a little conversation this evening regarding some of the claims that was brought forward into Parliament on Tuesday. And I just want to address, I very briefly want to address the Minister for People Empowerment and Elderly Affairs, the Minister responsible for Education, and the Minister responsible for Health. I will show you this evening how all of these ministries are related, and so that we'll have a better conversation on what exactly is happening. Brothers and sisters, we are being deceived. I want to make that very clear. We are being deceived. And one of the things that I heard this evening from our fellow sisters is that we must remain alert at all times. And there's something interesting about Tuesday's debate. You know that saying they say about a guilty conscience? That guilty conscience will make people run and do things they didn't even expect to do. How long has this child protection bill has been on the table? How long? How long have we been asking the government to implement further protection for our children in this country? How long? But as I said, the guilty conscience. And the minister had the foresight to say that all of a sudden there are people in the public, we're coming out and we're speaking, but we must speak. It is our democratic right to speak, not so? It is our right to speak. Because if we do not speak, you will get the opportunity to do as you please. So we're taking the opportunity to reflect on some of the policies that you intend to implement. Because right now this is the second reading of the bill. And as I said, I want you to keep in mind the guilty conscience and what it does. Because there's something about humanity, we all have that spiritual side of us, whether we accept it or not. And sometimes when the Spirit knows you're doing something wrong, it will force you to do the right thing. So they're not doing it because they wanted to do it. They're doing it because they don't have a choice right now. They have to do it. Because one of the things that we ought to remember when we speak about children's rights, you cannot speak about children's rights without parents. You cannot speak about children's rights without parents. And the minister, being as calculated as he is, informed us that we don't have to worry about parental rights because it's in the policy. Ask him where. Tell him, Felicia Dujon asked him to point out exactly where it is located. Because just like him, I went through it. We should all get the opportunity to go through it, go through those policies and those laws, and to ensure whatever that it is there, it's constitutional and it's legal. Because we know this government, this administration has been doing things that are a little bit questionable. A little bit questionable. I'll not even say illegal as yet. I will leave that to the judge. Because the mere fact that they have the nerve to tell us now, after so many centuries, that they're changing the child protection laws. Why now? Why now when we challenged you to protect our children? Never in the history of this country in Barbados has any administration violated the rights of those children. Never. And I challenge anyone to tell me where. I challenge them. The reality is, from the entire law, it talks about parents being abusive, community members being abusive, but not once were they honest to say, who is going to protect the children against us? Who is going to protect the children against the government? When children's rights are violated by government agencies, by ministries of education, who protects the children? I want you to ask the minister that question, because he looked good in Parliament on Tuesday. He did look good. And he spoke well as well. He's very eloquent. But ask him that question. When things go wrong and the rights of our children are violated, who is going to protect them if it's not the parents? It is still the parents. I want to remind this administration that parents are the best interpreters of the law on behalf of their children. Parental rights are human rights that the state does not have the right to infringe, violate, or ignore. Because it seems to be an attack on parents. Why? We shouldn't have stood up. We shouldn't have spoke. We shouldn't have spoke. So I will just go very briefly, since the minister assumes that the law is very much ready to go, and he has involved all the agencies. So he spoke very wonderful about the international law agencies, the local agencies that helped them work on this document. But one of the things they have not recognized.
Sorry, excuse me. If we could just tone it a little bit at the back. It's just a bit disruptive for the speaker, and if we can just give her that courtesy, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
No, it's okay, you know, they can have the little drink and we can talk, you know. It's all right. We came here to speak and enjoy ourselves, right? And to learn and to make sure we hold these people accountable. So in the Child Protection Act, one of the challenges that I saw, and there's quite a number of them as our sister highlighted, the interpretation is very important. Though it speaks about parents, it gives parents very little authority. And I want parents to recognize that as well. It gives them very little authority. So in one of the parts that is very important, interpretation, part 1, interpretation 2, and the minister, this is for you because I think you'll have the opportunity to go for that, and of course you can go for it and see it yourself. It raises quite a number of challenges because one of the things that it does, It speaks about care responsibility and for consent for medical treatment. Who is going to give the child consent for any kind of medical procedures? Who? Is it you? Is it the government? Is it the medical practitioners? Parents, grandparents, guardians, I want you to remain alert. You have to remain alert. Once it becomes law, it will be very difficult for you to get your rights. Very difficult. So at this point, we're asking that they revisit this policy. It is what they call constructive ambiguity. They're writing it in a language that leaves that open space, as our colleague highlighted, so that when you as a parent, your child, your grandchildren want to make decisions that may conflict with their own well-being, the state, the government has the right to tell you as a parent to stand aside. And if you don't, they have every responsibility to hold you accountable. They can even arrest you for that because you're interfering with those rights. So it's very important that we take that into consideration. The neglect of the child, which is part one, interpretation again. They define the neglect of the child as actions, omissions, or any failure of a parent. Again, the way that they describe parent is really in not a very good light, because we know that parents are not the only ones that can violate the rights of children. We know that. But in this act, it does not make any provision that if a state agency, like the Child Care Board, the Ministry of Education, and they themselves, the government, we cannot hold them accountable. And that is why I'm saying, even if they say that, yes, we have 6,000 or 600 children or whatever the count is, what's about the individual institution? And I don't want us to go back in memory lane, but we could and we should. Because what happened in October, we saw what happened. Did the minister, where was they? Where was he? The Minister of People Empowerment. Where was he? Where were they? They were all silent. And they gave us a forced apology. That's what they did. So we have to take that into consideration. One of the things that we can recommend is to have an independent commission that deals with child protection, any kind of situation. So have an independent council or independent commission that deals with matters that conflicts not only with the child's rights, but with the government. Because as we know, we can no longer trust them. We can no longer trust them where our children is taken into account. We have to keep that in mind. And because of that, we want them to lose 2 seats. At least 2. 2 for what was done to those children. But let me remind you, colleagues and comrades and friends, brothers and sisters, it's not going to go away in a hurry. It is not going to go in a hurry as long as my foot is standing and we are here. We're going to take them to task. We're going to take them to task. So they can bring all the bills that they can bring. We appreciate it. We thank you for it. But we're not going to forget what you did. We're not going to allow you to violate the rights of children. Because when we think about the violation of children, we only think about physical abuse. What's about psychological abuse? What's about abuse that those children went through? Do you have an account of that? Does the Child Care Board have any account of those children that went through that survey? Does anyone have anything to say on that matter? No. But remember what I said, the guilty conscience. The guilty conscience will allow them to run and make various decisions. And some of these decisions may affect us in the long run. So it's important that we understand what this bill is about, how it's interpreted, and what are the reasons behind it. Because it's very important. Now they're talking about children's rights and children's rights. Where were you in October last year? Where were you? Did you forget that children have rights? Did you forget? Did you forget that they are human beings? And they have fundamental rights that you, even as a government, cannot infringe upon. So yes, we applaud you for bringing this bill, but don't take any credit for it. Don't take any credit for it, because as parents and as societal members, we have always protected our children. We have always protected our children. We may have one or two people in the communities that may not understand the rights of children. And we understand when things like that happen, they have to be held accountable. But do not come in Parliament and make the assumption that we do not know about children's rights and that we cannot speak about children's rights. We have every reason. How dare you, Mr. Minister, to tell us we can't come and speak about issues that affect our society. Sit down, sir. We've been doing this, and we've been standing up for our children to the point we will not even allow your government to violate their rights. We will stand up and walk if we have to, and take them to task. And take them to task. Never forget that. Never forget. Never forget. And it's something I want to remind us in here. There's this assumption that since we're not in Parliament, we're not the opposition. We are the opposition. We are the opposition. Whether we're in or out, we are the opposition. Yes? So don't let them fool you. Don't let them fool you and make you feel because you're out of Parliament, you can't speak. No, we will speak. We will walk if we have to, and we will challenge you for any bill you bring in. Any bill that you bring in that is offensive to us, we will stand up and let that be known. The opposition is us. It's the ordinary man, because you're in power and you have the authority. And when you're ready and when things do not work out the way you want to, you come and tell us, not about her. It is about her. It is about her. We are the opposition and we will speak up. We will not be silenced. You can silence your ministers. You can tell them, keep quiet, and you may not want them to resign, but you won't silence the opposition. You won't silence us. As long as we are living in this country and we have life, we will stand up whether we're in Parliament or outside Parliament. So, Mr. Minister, for people empowerment, you have some homework to do. Part 1, interpretation. Part 2, also interpretation for the purpose. I'm just going to read it out so that you know. Part 1 with principles. All of it has to deal with children's rights, but it does not cover parental rights. Don't fool the people. Do not fool the people. You are being deceitful. Do not fool the people. Part 1 again, dealing with participation of the child. Section 7, again, speaks nothing about parents, and if it does, it gives the state authority. It gives the state authority. Now, it does that in the view of giving the director the authority. But who's the director? The director works for the state. And when the state is ready, the state says, not about here. We can't have that when it comes to our children. Because we parents, we can stand up for ourselves. We can speak for ourselves. But when it comes to the children, we are their voices. We are their voices. And they have to understand parental rights are sacred rights. They are sacred rights. We didn't get them from the government. We got them from God. So who are you? Who are you to come and infringe on those rights? Let's be very clear about that. And I want to ensure that we know that and they know that parents are the best interpreters of the law on behalf of their children. So any law that you pass for our children, we ought to have just as much authority as the state. Just as in authority as the state. And it is one of the reasons we're advocating that parental rights be included in the new constitution. And we will not sleep until that is done. So yes, the minister, you spoke about, oh, we can't speak about parental rights because we're dealing with children. How are you going to deal with children without parents? How? How? How are you going to do that? When you do that, you're contradicting yourself. You're contradicting yourself. And that is why it's very important that we as citizens understand the dynamics involved when this administration tries to deceive us. We have to keep our eyes open and we have to inform our friends, our family members, our colleagues, so that they know better. So that the next time they come with the games and the gimmicks, we will tell them not about here. Not about here. Because we know better. We did our research. And even if we talk pretty, we know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about because when it comes to our constitutional rights, our democratic rights, we cannot allow any state, any government, or any administration, no matter how big they are, or no matter how pretty they talk, we will stand up for our rights. We will stand up. So that's the part that I gave the homework for Minister Humphrey. You have homework to do, sir. And you can call me when you're ready because it's very important that if you're going to pass this bill, we want to ensure that parents are not disadvantaged. If you're going to protect children, we all want to protect our children as well, but we want to ensure that parents' rights are not disadvantaged. You cannot put laws and make parents as criminals. We're not criminals. We take care of our children. That's one thing we know about us. We take care of our children. And you're going to implement laws about making parents criminals. And at the same time, you going around doing things. And we can't hold you to task. You have to think again. Because we are aware and we are awake. And we will not allow these kinds of incidents to happen ever again in Barbados. That will never happen again. And so, yes, we're glad that you placed the law, and we're glad about that. But at the same time, do it the right way, because you will hear us again. Oh, yeah, you will hear us, whether, as I said, whether we're in Parliament or outside, we will speak. So I just want them to know that. Now, I just want to send a very nice message to the Minister of Education, since we don't hear too much from her. And also to whoever's responsible, the minister responsible for health. I do, and all of us, I believe that we understand the fact that we need healthy children in our society. And the National Nutrition Policy, it's a good policy, yes? Children need water, they need good food, they need to sleep well. But I want to ask the Ministry or Minister of Education, why did y'all include sexual and reproductive health in that national policy for nutrition? Why? I want you to respond to me, to the public, because thus far the public is only aware of, don't give them soft drinks, don't give them conkles. But when you go deeper into the policy, and that is for you as well, if you haven't seen it, I want you to go and see it. Because one of the things that they're looking to do in that health policy is to develop an adolescent-friendly clinic. Make a note of it. We want to know exactly what do you mean by that adolescent-friendly clinic. It also deals with not only health, but it also seeks to provide sexual and reproductive services to teenagers or adolescents. We want to ask the questions because we know that this administration is very deceitful. Why are you including sexual and reproductive health in a national nutrition policy? And one of the things that I observed when I did my little research, I noticed that part of the services may include things but not limited to contraceptives, abortions, and things of that nature. Are parents aware of this? Brothers and sisters, are you aware of this? No? Y'all sleeping on y'all. We need to read those policies. We need to see why it was implemented. The Ministry of Education is advocating for this policy, yet still within that policy speaks about reproductive, sexual and reproductive health. What does that mean? What does it mean? You need to come to the public and let the public know what it is about. Because sooner or later, and our wonderful Minister of Elderly Affairs and People Empowerment spoke about having a national policy for everyone. Again, with this administration, we have to stay alert. We can't even sleep. Because every time we try to get a little sleep, something else happens. Every time we try to close our eyes, something pops up. We have to keep them accountable. But something that keeps coming to my head, you know that little saying that says, poking the bear? You know when you poke a bear, you try to see how fast or how angry the bear would get? They don't know what they're doing. They really don't know what they're doing. So brothers and sisters, there are two things we want this administration to do. The Minister for People Empowerment, you have homework to do. And Minister of Education, Minister for Health, you need to come to the public. The same people you call that there's no opposition, and we come, yes, the opposition, us. We need you to come and tell us why you included that in a national nutrition policy. And we do understand you need nutrition for your reproductive health, of course. But why are you including the adolescents and having a private clinic for them? These are the things that we ought to know as parents, as elders, as community members within the society, and as the opposition. Yeah? We need to know. So until we don't know, we will still speak. It is our democratic right to speak. It is our democratic right to ask a question. And if they cannot answer the question, then we know they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Brothers and sisters, thank you for having me this evening, and keep them on their toes.
Wow, thank you so much, Felicia. Wow. Can we just give another round of applause? That's all right? Extremely grateful for bringing those things to light. You know, it really makes you wonder, when you really think about it, what would be the purpose for having adolescent-friendly clinics? What would be the intention? Why insert something that? And if you look at the things before, you hear me? Sorry. Thank you. If you look at the things said before, and you begin to put the pieces together, and you look at the challenges that America is having, where now it is okay. I've seen some experiments done where you have grown adults petitioning for 5-year-olds to have a sex change, and when you look at the response from the public, they're not outraged and they're saying, sure, whatever is good for the child, whatever feels good to them. Could you imagine that? At 5 years old, 6, 7, 8. And these are the things that we must get enraged about, because there should never be any sort of reality where our children should be in any sort of clinic getting any kind of help, getting any sort of mutilation, and not having to consult the parent. That's what the parent is there for. So I'm very happy that she's brought these things to light, because we must ask questions. So to us that are here viewing online, those that are here physically, let us ask these questions to persons around us. Let us ask them at forums. Let us ask them in whatever environments we go into, because unfortunately we keep coming back to America. We've heard it several times tonight, and there are no moral authority or spiritual authority to make dictates to countries like ours that have held dearly to things like family, mommy, daddy, and the children. So we have to really begin to ask ourselves, where is the administration heading in trying to insert certain things in the legislation? And as Mr. John was, not even alluding to, outright stating, it's the removal of authority for us, the parents, for us, the guardians. And we can never let that happen. For those of us that not only have biological children, but we have been fathers and mothers to children in our society, we have to stand against that injustice. We have to stand against that overreach together, as a family, as a unit, and as one people. It should make us angry, should it not? It should make us think and to make us riled up and to speak out against the things that we're seeing that are simply not right. You know, she also spoke about the false apology, and we saw that with the IDB test, didn't we? For those of you that saw the young lady's apology, it lacked sincerity, which implied that they were okay with what they were doing. That should worry us. That should concern us. Seriously. As Barbadians, if we put politics aside, that should concern us as family. And I, as a pastor, I would obviously bring that back to the reality, as she also spoke about the root. The root is a spiritual root. The root is a demonic root, where we have people in places that are giving demons power to operate on their behalf. That's the reality. And that's sometimes where we can't find the problem to things, because the problem is not a physical problem, but it's a spiritual problem. So we're looking for something that we literally cannot see. But you know what? We got to fight fire with fire. There's a time for that, and the time for that is in the spiritual, calling things out as we're seeing them and taking them to task. Let us go to war for our nation. Let us go to war for our children. Listen, Barbados, the children are who come next. They come next. All right. Let's continue with our next speaker for tonight. I want to welcome to you a brilliant young lady who is also an attorney at law. She has a professional background in banking, insurance, and administration. She also has a strong Christian background. She ran in the January 2022 elections in St. Philip West, making strong connections and continuing to develop herself and proving herself to have value and strength in the political landscape. She's also a gifted musician singer and songwriter. And who knows, she might even sing and perform for us tonight. I want you to please help me welcome Comrade Karina.
Good night, Barbados. I want to hear a nice, hearty good night again. I love to hear your voice. I love my country. I know that many people don't say that to you, but I love my country and I love to be a part of the decision making of the country. I stand under the umbrella of the Democratic Labour Party. One more time. I hope that the Barbados Labour Party hear the noise that's in here. BLP, we are in White Rabbit Bar and the place is full. The place is full, so you're losing people. We have the right in here, Democratic Labour Party, yes? The umbrella that I stand upon, as I was saying, is not a crooked one where when you go in the rain, the umbrella flies up in the air. This Democratic Labour Party that I stand under is a strong party that is here with you every step of the way, and we are not giving up until we have won again. Now tonight, I want to be talking about the economy, about cost of living, and the taxes. When I woke up one morning, I look on the Instagram on Barbados today, and my heart feels like every near stop. Because I saw that there are discussions by the present government to come up with a new tax, which is called the salt tax. Now I haven't even gotten over the first heartbreak of the sweet beverage tax. I know you hate me now with the salt tax. I want to urge this present government to come up with solid investments before we just tax away our lives in this country. Taxes is not the only solution for this country when it comes to making money and to ensuring that this country has money. I'm saying it that way because the Barbados Labour Party is saying that this is to help prevent the non-communicable diseases of the country. But yet, the Barbados Labour Party has not been transparent enough. Do you agree with me? They've not been transparent enough. We still don't even know right now what's the number of people what number of people are right now having these non-communicable diseases. We have no idea. You hear my background? We're saying that we don't know. We don't know the number, and we don't know the percentage of which we will be hit with. 20% is already on the sweetened beverages, right? So we don't know if it's going to be 70%. We don't know if it's 15%. All we are seeing in the news is that there's a discussion going on by Dr. Arthur Phillips, who is the senior medical officer who's working under the health and wellness. But we're still here in a bit of curiosity, wondering, Auntie, what next? Sometimes if I have to make a choice between Auntie, I choose Uncle Ronnie. Because Uncle Ronnie is coming and we have to choose Uncle Ronnie. So make sure that you remember that. I want to go into details right now. Let's take a pause. The Democratic Labour Party would have posted some of the changes that the Barbados Labour Party had made, yes? We have increased bus fares of $3.50. We have a pandemic levy of 1% for individuals earning $62.50. We have, as I said before, the 20% here on sweetened beverages. We have 22% VAT on mobile phone services. I don't want to forget none, so I'm making sure I read it right here. We also have 10% tax in Airbnb. And my goodness, even 17.5% VAT applied to online transactions. So the persons like myself who like to be online and shopping, we have to get hit with this tax. You like to get hit with the tax? I like interactive conversation. Do you like, let your voice be heard tonight, do you like to get hit with these taxes? Barbados Labour Party, when you are in your discussions concerning taxes, please remember that this country is made up of the lower class, the middle class, and the high class. And most times, it is the lower class that is getting the really rough end of the stick. Things are hard already. We already have a cost of living that is already skyrocketing. I don't need to go into the fact that a chicken right now is at least $20. You ever hear about the $20 chicken? Don't make me look like I'm telling lies tonight. I know I'm telling the truth. You have a $20 chicken, and the cost of living already high. And here we go. Now we're talking about taxes. Baby, somebody now shot me. They say that it's even more than $20. It's even more than $20. My God. When I was listening to Mr. Paul Gibson, and I was reading his article, he's one of the sportsmen from the Democratic Labour Party, he made some really good points. We are advocating for the people of Barbados that there be a cut and a decrease concerning the cost of healthy foods. If we are saying that we are interested in the people's health, then we need to cut down on those prices and push agriculture production. Clap your hands for that. We need to push agriculture production because not only does it help to reduce costs, but it also increases the food security. We need food here in Barbados and we need to live. And honestly, sometimes I'm just in shock for the fact that the Barbados Labour Party doesn't push so much education in terms of allowing people to know what choices to make. My friends, tell me, we live in a country full of roosters, fowl cocks, and we still know that we don't catch the fowl cocks. We still like to go in the supermarket and buy chicken. I'm saying that to you because you know what choices to make for yourself. You know what's good for you and what's not. But the government needs to push those educational programs instead of always dipping into your pocket to take taxes out. They need to do it because right now the present government, we already know, borrowing. Apart from borrowing, you're just taking because you want the money to come from inside instead of outside. You get me? Let me put it a different way so I make sure it hit home. We are not pushing enough foreign investment to come from the outside. Let me put it in a different way. A friend of mine was giving me a joke. I was really trying not to make this joke, but it was still funny. He was telling me that when you are at church, the pastor would normally take up the collection 2 and 3 and 4 times to ensure that the church has enough money on the inside. But if the pastor had a business, then he wouldn't have to take up the collection 4 and 5 and 6 times to get money to come into the church. So use that as a parable tonight. If we in Barbados have enough money, do you feel as a people that you will be hearing tax, tax, tax all the time? Answer me tonight. We will not be hearing about taxes all the time because we'll be making enough money. So the government needs to make more money. And therefore, as we make more money, then you want to hear about all of these taxes. I like to make my jokes, but I also like to be serious. I feel as though we're barely scratching the saucepan. I get one laugh, so I know it's still funny. It ain't all over. One time I was at home, and I thought somebody was breaking into my house. So I called the police force. I had a police friend on my phone, and I dialed the number, and I said, help me, I think somebody's breaking into my house. When the officer came, we then recognized that somebody was on the outside breaking into us. So I looked like a fool. So the officer told me, listen, whenever the rat scratch you saucepan again, don't call me. So Barbados Labour Party, I want you to know tonight to stop scratching the saucepan. I want to be in your meetings. I want to know what is going on. You need to be more transparent. You need to be more transparent. We want the figures. We want the numbers. We need to know if the sweet and beverage tax is working before we can move on to the salt tax. How could you implement something new before bringing proof to us as a people of this country and nation to let us know that the first tax is actually working? How? Somebody, how? Tell me how. We want them to tell us as a people what is going on. So what is the solution? Are you going to sit back as a people and every time when somebody, the Barbados Labour Party, come with a tax and say that you have to pay, we are going to be a quiet nation that is just going to sit and allow it? Or are we going to keep noise? We have to keep noise concerning these things. I'm not yet impressed. I'm not yet impressed. Matter of fact, I'm not impressed at all. Because right now, it just feels as if anything could be taxed at this moment. We're on the topic of taxes tonight, and anything could be taxed next week. And it could be any figure. What figure would you say is a suitable figure? Let me ask and let me answer. Something reasonable or no figure? Reasonable. Somebody say reasonable, and I believe that we should be having some kind of reasonable tax and a cutback. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having to wake up and whatever the government says we go with. I'm tired of not knowing what's in the proposal. I'm tired of not hearing from the ministers what is next. I'm tired of having to then have to rely on Barbados Today just to read, to hear a little snippet, but then nothing is in my eyes to see what is happening here. Do we not as a nation want to know what is happening? I don't want to repeat myself all the time, but I want to reinforce this point for the Barbados Labour Party. We are urging you tonight, right here from the Democratic Labour Party, to come up with the solid investments and plan and to put in some educational programs. I want to see it on the TV. I want to see it on the news. I want to hear about it in the paper. I want to see something else than just taking money out of our pockets to suit yourself. There's too much mismanagement of the governmental funds right now in this country, and that is why, no, I allow you to clap for that. I like claps. That makes me feel good and get me excited as I'm talking. Too much mismanagement of funds right now in the country, and we need to know that when these decisions are being made, they're not just being made to suit one class of the country, but everybody in the country. We already know that the Barbados, that the Democratic Labour Party, I'm going to get to BLP yet. The Democratic Labour Party, as I said in my last speech, was always for the poor, the underprivileged, and everybody. The Democratic Labour Party was not only for one class. And that is why there needs to be effective and efficient collection of data when it comes to these taxes, because I strongly believe that sometimes that the persons who are making the millions of dollars are the ones that are defaulting in payments. And then it actually falls back on the poor man, as we will call him, or the lower class man, who end up feeling the burn. Already, we're talking health, but when we have to buy these expensive foods, we can't afford. I put myself in somebody's place, we can't afford expensive foods. I mean, you go in the supermarket, your head hurt you already get some kind of pressure, and you go to the doctor, you got high blood pressure. That is sickness too. That is sickness too. We need more from this country. And that's why I'm standing here today. Because honestly, we are already spending a lot. 20% tax on a sweet and beverage, and then we don't even know if it's going to be 20% tax on the salt, on the food that they're saying have high salt content. And I don't even think, don't hold me to it, but I really don't think that Bajans swim in salt that kind of way, where Bajans just, because the taste of salt alone, you don't even like. Who really in their right minds really puts a lot of salt in food to the point that you believe that you could swallow it and live effectively? We are not trying to kill ourselves. We have a mind for ourselves to know by now what is good for our health and what is not good for our health. And that is why I'm advocating again tonight to tell the Barbados Labour Party, I do not think that it is a good idea to bring in another tax so soon. And you're saying that you're having discussions with the manufacturers and the producers, but yet still, when it comes to the nutrition policy, you didn't even give them enough time. You didn't give the sellers enough time. Diverting. Barbados Labour Party is coming up with ideas, but then the same ideas are backfiring. I was speaking to a young lady on the phone, and she said, would you believe I applied for my ID online, and I'm still waiting for my ID card? So you want to tell me that if you came up with a brilliant idea to allow persons to sign up for the ID card online, up to now, you can't fix the problem. You can't fix the problem yet so that the same persons that apply could have gotten their ID cards? I gave you that example to show you that they're fishing, but it seems like they're fishing in the wrong waters. You're fishing and you're trying to find ideas that work, but they're not well thought through. They better take out some of us from, well, we don't want to cross over, but we better get in there in some of these places and stand as the voice. And that is why, whether we are in Parliament or not, we are still a voice. We are still a voice for the people, and that's why we are holding this platform. We are a voice for the people, and as much, right? As some people may criticize the Democratic Labour Party, there are more things to compliment, in my view, than to criticize. Because many of the ideas that are working in this country, the Democratic Labour Party came up with, and they are still working today. So the Democratic Labour Party is saying, cut back on taxes, push the agriculture of the country. They have a lot of vacant land, lots of vacant land in this country that could be used up. Plant the potatoes, plant the yam. We need to be more producers than consumers. And we are not getting sufficient production coming out of the country. We need to be more producers. Whether a service or a product, we need better ideas. And we need them implemented now. I can argue with myself, because I have the podium, and I will argue by myself. We need better ideas. And I will repeat myself, because it must be driven home. Remember this young girl saying that next week we could wake up and there will be another tax. Remember this young girl saying that if we keep accepting 1 and 2 and 3, we will end up with 4 and 5 and 6. Enough is enough. Tonight I come to talk about it because it was really on my heart. Anybody else offset, or is only me? You like paying out all of this money? Salaries, poor, wanting to get a job, but the salaries are low, low, low. So then when we have to make investments now, we have to think 3 and 4 times, because we already have to spend the money and the taxes and the high cost of living. What are we going to be left with to invest in, huh? Poor salaries. Why every time we have to talk about the salary increase? That's not a conversation that we are hearing so much. And then if you increase it by so little. $50 and a little bit. We want a proper increase, instead of just bringing in foreigners sometimes, and then you complaining. Then the same foreigners end up complaining. Same foreigners end up complaining because the pay is very low. I have foreigners that came to me before and said, hey, I was a nurse that came to the country and came to work, but I'm barely surviving here. So what about our Barbadian people who are already here working, and then you're not getting enough money? But then every minute, tax from the inside. I'm wrapping up because my time is up. I didn't even realize that. I was enjoying having a good time with you, but my time is soon up. I am advocating for you for the increase of salaries, lower the cost of living. Auntie Mayor, please. Because Ronnie, our Uncle Ronnie is coming for you. And you need to lower the cost of living in this country and stop taxing my beautiful Barbadian people. And you'll be hearing from me another time, because my time is up. I love you, Barbados. I thank you for this platform tonight. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Karina. Not to cut you, but we gotta move on ahead. Solid. You know, as Karina said, right? Until we have Uncle Ronnie in office, we might have problems. So let us get him to where he needs to be to see the change that we need to see. Karina, thank you so much for your. I was just thinking though, as she was sharing, not only do we have an issue that I want to see the government explore more, not only with expensive foods or expensive alternatives, but I think we also need to look at access to healthier foods. right? So we're saying, okay, let's eat healthier, that's all fine. So as we tackle the challenge of the cost to do so, let's also look at the access, which will be a holistic challenge to the problem that we're experiencing. Because if you think about it at 11 o'clock or 12 or midnight, and you want to get something to eat, where do we go to? Fast food joints, right? Which is not only expensive, but unhealthy. So I think that, you know, I think it's a good step in the right direction, but I encourage the government, as my sisters have done before, and I'm sure my brother will do in a minute, let's also look at things holistically, because to have just one piece of the puzzle in place, we can run into some problems as we seek to execute the solutions to our problems. I want you to help me welcome, or in a couple of seconds, our next speaker. The founder of Rosa Marie Nonprofit, which seeks to empower young people. He's driven to assist children in his hometown community to make great strides towards making a difference in their trajectory in life. Coming from humble beginnings, his ambition is a fundamental motivating force to others. His empathy for suffering of individuals leads him to genuinely extend kindness and decency to those in need, finding solutions without expectations of any external reward. I believe that he too has lent and is lending himself with those that you have heard tonight, and soon with our president that will speak in a minute, to be a part of the solution of Barbados. And as our president always says, we don't want handouts, we don't want handouts, we want hand-ups. So help me to welcome Comrade Dale. Help me to welcome Comrade Dale Rowe of the St. George South constituency. I actually knew Dale from when it was Wesley Hall, from the time we were little kids. Yeah, we broke up since then. But you know what? It is nice to meet him here again, years later, in an environment like this, championing the cause of young people and giving giving young people reach for where they can be and where they need to go. So Dale, I turn it all over to you. Bless you, brother.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so I want to take this time to let us give full thanks and praise to the White Rabbit establishment. So I want everybody to give them a round of applause. Come on, we can do better than that. All right. So, testing, yeah. Yes, for a person, I do not like lies. The Barbados Labour Party need to stop telling lies. On May 16th, 2023, an article by the chairman of the BHTA saying that a plan must be formulated to end labor shortage in the hospitality industry. Before I go on, they also said it's a bounce back in the hotel sector. But if you look at all of the hotels throughout this island right now, so many staff went home this week, last week, and week before. Where is the bounce back? There's none. Lies. The PM called for such a dialogue between the labor and the private sector to tackle challenges that the workers face. Okay. So if the PM asks for us to tackle challenges, I'm going to outline 3 challenges that employees face on the South Coast. On the South Coast properties, restaurants and hotels, minimum wage with no service charge. When we look at the restaurants, no, we go to dine South Coast. You see a big bill, and then you see service charge. Service charge is supposed to be distributed to all staff. But none of these workers on the South Coast, none of them do not receive service charge. They receive $8.50 an hour, $9 an hour. That is the first challenge. Challenge number 2, short-term contracts. So Barbados depends heavily on the tourism sector. But I got a question to ask. Somebody please answer this question. Can you tell me what is the tourist attraction in Barbados? No. No. It's not the sea, it's not the sand, it's not the activities, it's not the wildlife reserve. The people. The tourist attraction is the people. Why do you think that the tourists keep coming back to Barbados? Because of the people. That is the only reason. The people. We don't have the fancy waterfalls. When last anybody ever went to the wildlife reserve? It's just monkeys and turtles. That is not a tourist attraction. Not a tourist attraction. I work in the hotel sector. I manage restaurants. I work South Coast and I work West Coast. West is best. Because when you go on the West Coast, they treat you, great. But on the South Coast, it's ridiculous. But yet still, the chairman of the BHTA and the prime minister can talk a lot of lies. All right, the third challenge that employees face, no meal allowance. At present, I know persons that wake up at 4 a.m. to get to South Coast properties for 6:30 every day. And when these persons get to these hotels and these restaurants on the South Coast, the first meal they receive is at 12 midday. That is bad. If you check the laws and the labor laws with the unions and what's not, when somebody is rostered to arrive to work before 7:30, they are entitled to breakfast. But the South Coast properties do not give these people breakfast. I could start calling names, but no, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do that. Okay. So for me now, right? This is what the chairman said, and I quote, "I think that we are committed to ensuring that we have the best possible relationships with our team members, our staff, as well as the unions that represent them, and ensuring that there's fairness." But yet still, this is what the chairman of the BHTA said. The chairman of the BHTA was supposed to meet with the union February 16th, and they canceled it. So how they want to build a relationship with team members, staff, and also the union lies again. Those persons were supposed to meet with the union to discuss salaries, wages, and conditions for the staff. All the BHTA and the PM keep doing is putting it back, putting it back, putting it back, because they do not care about the people on the South Coast. This part, right, amazed me. When I was managing South Coast properties, I would have reached out to the owners asking for assistance so that we can train staff. We can implement different systems and strategies to train staff. And the South Coast properties keep saying, no, we don't have the budget. No, we don't have the budget. But yet still, the races that we just had, the horse races, this is statistics, 5 South Coast properties gave the winning horses 16,500. One other property, 16,500 again. The third property is 36,000. The fourth property gave 18,000. and one of the associations gave the winning horses 13,500. So of course, probably could find this kind of funding to invest in a horse, but you're not investing in your staff. So for me, I am very disappointed with the BHTA, and I'm also disappointed with the Prime Minister of Barbados, and more so the Tourism Minister. Tourism Minister, what are you doing? They spoke about the labor shortages. Why should I get my daughter or my son or my nephew or my niece to come and join the hotel sector at this present moment in this state? No, can't work. You know why? This is a true story. There are so much talented people in Barbados that work in the hotel sector, and none of these persons never had the opportunity to become a manager, a supervisor, ever. These persons were in the hotel sector for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and never received the opportunity. Now, so much positions available in this country right now, but none of those positions are available for Barbadians. The hotel sector, especially South Coast, love to seek outsiders to come here to do the jobs. When we bring those people from the outside here, we still have to train them. We still have to teach them the SOPs, but yet still those persons receiving the large benefits and the whole works. I have 5 friends that started the hotel sector with me, and those 5 persons never had the opportunity to manage. But like I said earlier, the tourist attraction in Barbados is the people. Turks and Caicos, they know that we have talented people. Turks and Caicos just hired my friend as a beverage manager, giving him 10,000 US per month. Car allowance, house allowance, and private school for his children. St. Lucia just hired another one of my colleagues as general manager, and he's only 32, and he's collecting 20,000 US per month. But if he was here, that would never happen. In addition to that, we have Bahamas and Dubai that investing into Barbadians. So every minute you can hear it here, I ain't saying Damien, I ain't saying John, I ain't saying Black, because these other countries getting us and taking us there, but our homegrown hotels don't pay us no money. They prefer to bring those that we still have to train them, you know? In addition to that, right, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, she stressed, there must be a deal for workers in terms of treatment and job security. I would like the Prime Minister to stop talking so much. Prime Minister, stop talking so much. Do it like Nike, just do it. I urge you, the Prime Minister and the Tourism Minister, to ensure that we have job security, to ensure that we have stability, to ensure that you develop into us, the people, because we represent Barbados. I'm about to wrap up, right? But before I go, I spoke to Paula and I spoke to Christina, because I am going to be the next, I'm speaking it into existence. I am going to be the next representative for the St. George South. In addition to that, when I spoke to Christina and when I spoke to Paula, they said that we need a slogan. So I said, no problem. This is our slogan for the St. George South. The time is now. Hear me out? So, this is what I can tell the Prime Minister. The time is now for you to stop talking so much, number one. The time is now for the BHTA to represent people of Barbados in the hotel sector. The time is now for us as a Democratic Labour Party to stand united. The time is now for us, the Democratic Labour Party, to lead this country. And the time is now for St. George South to give Rowe the opportunity to kick Dwight Sutherland out of here. Have a good night.
Wow! Ladies and gentlemen, I think what came at the end is an example of what is to come. Let's just give them another big hand. So I feel encouraged. I feel encouraged after that. I feel encouraged after that. Yeah. And after hearing our slate of speakers, I can see that the future is bright for the Democratic Labour Party. Without any further ado, I'm going to ask Melissa to assist me in welcoming a young man that has been instrumental in the putting together of the speakers and the quality of speakers that you have been experiencing here tonight. Which tells me that he has a good eye for talent, he has a good sense of leadership. He understands, I don't know if this is a good example, but yeah, he did his research. So I'm just going to ask Karina, if you would, to help me to welcome our next speaker.
Our next speaker tonight is a man with so many degrees, too much to mention. He is high in academics, a people man, a man who told me that he is committed to this Democratic Labour Party, a man who is constantly working, a man who is bringing the news to the people, a man who has come to awaken the Democratic Labour Party once again. A man who will take over this country. A man that I've given the name of Uncle Ronnie. A man of brilliance. A man of honor. A man who's looking for the way forward and is going to impress you beyond your imagination. And I want to welcome to this platform Dr. Ronnie Yearwood, the President of the Democratic Labour Party.
Wow. I don't even know if I can speak now. I should just sit down. After an introduction like that, I am bowled over. I am flabbergasted. I am lost for words. I am not a man who is usually lost for words. I want to thank Karina for that wonderful introduction. I want to thank the people of St. George North and St. George South for having us here tonight. And I want to start by saying, and I want to thank Karina, I want to thank Dale, I want to thank Melissa, I want to thank Felicia, I want to thank Tyra, I want to thank Matthew. And tonight, I am going to give them a name. And it's the name that they will be called on from tonight henceforth. They are the brave ones. They are the brave ones because so many of our people hide and cower in the dark. They hide and cower in their WhatsApp groups. They hide and twitch behind their curtains. They are afraid. These women, these men tonight, they are not afraid of anybody. And they have come here, they've put their lives, their families, their careers, their destinies on the line, to align themselves with this Democratic Labour Party and the future of this country. We should thank them. And I want you to give them another round of applause because they deserve our respect, they deserve our honor, they deserve everything this party has to give them. They are an example to this country of what true service looks like. They are an example of what we expect of our young people. They are an example of what we will do when we rebuild this party and as we build this country. They are the brave ones. They are the brave ones, and they will be known as the brave ones. And tonight we welcome them with full arms into the family of the Democratic Labour Party, and I put my name on it, that they are the future of this country. They're the future of this party. I am so proud, and I've never been prouder in my political life than tonight. I've never been prouder because of what I see here, and I see the future before us. We cannot look back. We have to move forward. We have to continue to push and develop this party, and it requires us to embrace the future, to embrace the new. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I will say it over and over. If this party cannot commit itself to change, then we cannot expect to change the country. Change the Democratic Labour Party, change Barbados. The future is ours, but we must hold on to it. And I will not back down from any fight. I will not back down from anyone who will challenge me and challenge this party. This party is on a trajectory of change, and you will get on board or you will get off. When I came to this presidency, I gave a message to this party, and I repeat that message tonight. This party must embrace change. If we cannot demonstrate that we can become the best of ourselves, that we can become better, how can we be trusted with the government? We cannot be trusted with anything. And until we understand that we are called to purpose, and we must deliver. We must stand up. We must unite. And I make no apologies for speaking that. I make no apologies to anyone. And I send a message to this party, and I send a message to this country. The Democratic Labour Party is ready for a change. The Democratic Labour Party is ready to serve. The Democratic Labour Party is ready to understand its mantle and its place to lead this country again. And what does that require? It requires the brave ones. And I ask and I reach out to all young people watching tonight, and anyone who's afraid, let these brave ones be an example that you have nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear, there's no one to fear, and you can come into your place in this party. You can come into your place in this country. You know, we have a country, we have a government where every single criticism of this government is followed by someone trying to pretend to be neutral. It seems you can't open your mouth, you can't breathe, you can't say anything against the government, you can't criticize the policy, and the government has all 30 seats. Nobody in the Democratic Labour Party don't get paid to do this. So let me just dispel that rumor, because somebody met my wife the other day. She was out somewhere and said, wait, he don't get paid for the job. My wife was saying, what are you talking about? How you mean he don't? Because we are doing this for the people of Barbados. This is what service is. We don't get no salvation. We ain't got no seats. There's nothing. Every day we roll up our sleeves, we pull our pockets, we implore, we talk to our families, we reach out to wherever we reach out to do this job on behalf of the people of Barbados. That is what true service looks like. If you want to understand what service in Barbados looks like at the moment, look no further than the Democratic Labour Party. Look no further than the people coming forward right now. Does this society think so little of itself that we stand here and we take these things, as Karina was talking about, why are we accepting the things that we are accepting from this government? In no other time in the history of Barbados will we be rolling over and playing dead. Why do we cower in the size of our WhatsApp chats? You know, it's here, well, you know, I can't do that, you know, to Ronnie got family, you know. You know, Ronnie, I can't talk about them things in public. What do you mean? I don't want to lose the pig. What do you mean? So the young people are up here tonight, they ain't got pigs to lose, they ain't got families that they have to take care of. Do they not have friends? Do they not have careers? But they are here. They are the brave ones. So many have seemed to be afraid of this government. What are you afraid of? An army of sycophants, an army of people who have failed upwards, who cannot do anything, a minister of education who probably don't know A from B, a minister of social care, elderly affairs, who cannot understand the basis of reforming child care, as Tyra talked about. We have a government that, although it has all the resources at its disposal, seems incapable of delivering anything for the people of this country. And that is not hyperbole. That is not a grand statement. That is just the reality of where we are. Now we are on the heels of 5 years of this government. And what have they delivered for the people of Barbados? A republic of fear? Is that what we've delivered? And you know, when Owen spoke about the nature of the Prime Minister, many people thought that he was being personal. And now we realize that he was not being personal, he was just being truthful and factual. And given the current climate of fear that exists in this country, tonight, what I want you to do, I want you to commit yourself to taking back the democracy of this country, to taking back the spaces, to letting your voice be heard, to let your voice be amplified, to let your ideas contend, to let your arguments and your criticisms go forth, because you are worthy of that. You are worthy of being called Barbadian. You are worthy, you are somebody, and nobody will ever tell you that you're nothing. We need a vibrant space, a vibrant democracy, and do not let them take it from you, because the reality, if they take it from you, we will not get it back. I can guarantee you that. Future leaders of this country have a right to expect what Mayor Montley was given. Mayor Montley did not give the DLP a quarter, a half, an inch, a mile, or nothing. And let me tell you something tonight. It is not my job as the opposition leader, and yes I am, it is not my job as the opposition leader of Barbados to cheerlead for the government of Barbados. I will not give the government an inch, a quarter, a mile, nothing. The same treatment that was given out will be given out. We will be on the heels of the government. We will criticize their policies. We will show them the way forward. We will turn up every single idea that they have, because that is what an opposition is about. And if people cannot understand that is what opposition politics is about, you are in the wrong business. We are in the job of this party, yes, of criticizing the government. We will offer solutions when we feel they're necessary, but we will not pander, we will not play dead, we will not roll over and give them space. That is not the job of the opposition leader, and it is not the job that I will take upon. Now, the question we have to ask, are Barbadians better off now than they were 5 years ago? And that's the question. Politics always comes down to that question. Are you better off now than you were before? And I could spend the whole night reading off the things. Cost of living crisis, increases in sewage waste tax, economic underperformance. The economy is no more bigger now than it was 5 years ago. $14 billion in debt. 10,000 houses is a centerpiece, but none of them built. Few of the Chinese metal houses off the ground. Educational system in shambles. Fanfare over cannabis, but no policy rolled out. The hotels, the center in Whole Town to be moved, so that hotel can go there. We can go on. Bathsheba, Tea and Cup and Saucer, Dover, the last wetland in Graham Hall Swamp. We can keep going on and on. Are these the things and the achievements of the Barbados Labour Party government? How is that helping the people of Barbados? You know, and this is something that I want us to understand, and why I talked about the climate of fear and the brave ones. Recently, we had an educational policy, and I can pull it up on my phone because I don't want to mistake anybody. We had an educational reform policy 19 slides, Education Reform Brainstorming Session, August 2022. So the document was produced from August 2022. This is 2023. Now, if you are serious about education reform and youth development in this country, a 19-page set of slides that looked like it was produced in the 1980s, it looked like it was written on the back of a napkin by somebody who was obviously half drunk or not totally with it. And this document is supposed to lead Barbados into a 21st century education and supposed to provide the basis for the development of this country and young people in this country. You have 30 seats, every single resource available to you as a government, and this is 5 years, and this is the best that you can come up with. And then I get people making excuses. Man, Ronnie, you know, it ain't so bad. Then trying. It pointing in a direction. Man, you know, how are you trying with 30 seats, every single resource available to you? 5 years later, you've been talking about education. As Prime Minister, you are a former Minister of Education, and you can produce 19 pages of dribble that we got to look at, that point nowhere, that create more questions than answers, that have no statistics, no basis in reality, and this is supposed to be the crux of educational reform. And I know why people are holding on to it. Because, and I can say this, because people don't like to talk the truth in this country. People want the 11 plus gone, right? Understandably. The document promises the abolition of the 11 plus, but nobody is looking beyond all the other details of this document. Furthermore, we seem to forget why the 11 plus was introduced. The 11 plus was introduced in Barbados as an equalizer. And don't get me wrong, I support the removal of the 11 plus. I support reform in education. But if we are serious about educational reform, and I want you to listen to me closely, we have to be serious about putting parents, children, and communities at the center of the reform. We cannot come up with a document that has no statistics, no data, no understanding of what the problems are, but you are trying to tell me this is supposed to come up with the reform of Barbados. Furthermore, how are you classifying and automatically making every single older secondary school in Barbados an academy? So you have moved elitism from the 11 years to when you get to 14? So you're just moving the goalposts? Because in your heart, you do not want to change the system. Because you know what? The boy who lives in Haynesville or the girl who lives in Haynesville ain't good enough to go to Queen's College. The boy from Nelson Street obviously can't be good enough to go to Harson's College. So you want to maintain your elite systems by trying to reform a system and removing 11 plus. But elitism that has been bred into our Barbadian system will not disappear because of this. So I'm telling everybody listening, just because you want 11 plus gone, still beware of what you're holding on to and what the reforms are proposing. Because the very thing that you're trying to get rid of is simply moved along the line. Ain't gone away. It is not gone anywhere. Why are all the older secondary schools automatically academies? Why is Springer School, which is a top performing school, which has pulled itself by the bootstraps, reduced to a junior academy? Why are there no junior academies in the north of the island? There are going to be one. If you live in St. Peter or St. Lucie, where are you supposed to carry your child? Or St. Andrew? Well, I don't understand. The reality is this reform, as we see it, has no basis in reality. What is the problem the government is trying to correct? And this goes back to what Karina was talking about. Where is the information? What is the problem that we're correcting? We know that Barbados has a numeracy and a literacy problem. About 30% of our children can't add and they can't read. How is this system introducing junior academies going to correct that? We know that they have problems in terms of adjustment and social development. How does any of this address that? The reality is this reform is a cloak and dagger to maintain elitism in the school system while removing 11 plus. That is all it's doing. And we should not be ashamed to face that down. we should not be ashamed to talk about it, because the reality is the elitism that we have in our educational system will continue because of this. And then you ask the question, what about people who are already in these so-called academies? Are they going to be sent back down to junior academies? So your child passed for Harrison's, Queens, Lodge, CP, whatever, Alexandra, Commonwealth. When the system starts, what happens to them? Because they're going to be 11, so they can't be in the academies of excellence, so they have to revert back down to a junior academy. Has anyone actually sat and thought about how this is going to work in practice? And the reality is, the reform of education in Barbados is simple. The reform should be a school for all. That is the theme. Every single school should be able to cater for all the young people and all the students in that school. That is how we produce equality within our system. That is how we produce inclusive schools. If you live in St. Peter, you should be able to go to Alexandra or CP. You live in town, Harrison College is your school. You live in St. James, Queen's College is your school. But we have to own up to our colonial mindset and our slave mindset that we want to hold on to these titles and hold on to these schools because somehow we feel they make us better people. They do not. And I talk in facts, so I know enough people can be vexed for me because they want to go to Harrison College or they want to go to Queens. And this is about hating on the schools. This is about the reality of producing an educational system that makes our students world-class and makes our students competitive in every sense. All of them. You realize I said a school for all. Every single school should be able to cater to all students, not some students, not picking up the students with A's and leaving the ones that got D's by the wayside, and then be wondering why they're in jail. Why are the majority of people in jail from 7 or so secondary schools? Because those schools are underfunded, those schools don't get the resources that they require, they don't get the social support that they require, they don't get the social workers. Where's all the things that we require in our educational system? Where's the assessment process in all this? How then do we transfer a student from a junior academy to a senior academy? Is there another exam? Is there a continuous system of assessment? And if it's a continuous system of assessment, are we going back to the days where who you know, friends and family, gonna decide what academy you get into? Because if there is no way to decide, unless it's just a simple transfer, I live next door, so therefore I'm in the catchment area, I go into the school, how are you determining who goes to these academies of excellence? On what basis does child A or child B qualify to an Academy of Excellence? And if you've introduced Academies of Excellence, I see nowhere in this document what happened to BCC and Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic. So we have more questions than answers in this document. And I want to challenge the government. I want to challenge the Minister of Education. I want to challenge the Chief Education Officer. I want to challenge the Director of Reform to produce a proper white paper on education reform with the serious information, the data, the statistics, all the assessments that would allow us to have a proper conversation about education reform in this country. Because the reality is, on the basis of what we have here, this does not allow us to have a conversation. This is a kite-flying document. The government seems to be testing to figure out what we will accept and what we won't accept. And what is most disheartening about this process is that since this document was produced, there is silence. Where are the commentators that would normally come out? Where are the people that are going to defend our children and our schools and our teachers? How are you treating our teachers with respect when you summon them to a meeting 2 days before you show the document? You know, and I want to talk to you a little bit from the heart. And sometimes when I say so, I see my General Secretary twitch because he don't know what's coming next. And when I put where my notes and I just start, I see a little twitch in the eye, and he's like, where this going? No, this is serious. And I really want you to hear me, because I am deeply worried about Barbados. Aside from all the facts and the stats and GDP and GNP and a chicken is $40 and bus fare, you gotta pay $3 and $4, $20 a day. People are working for $1,700 and pay a mortgage. All of those things we understand. We understand where this country is, but I am also deeply worried about the engagement of people and their views to be heard. I am deeply worried about the democracy of this country. How do we get people to start talking again? How do we get people to start believing that they are the brave ones? How do we get people to understand that their voices are necessary for the success of this democracy and this country, that they have to be heard? How do we get them to come back, not necessarily about the Democratic Labour Party, because this is not about the party, this is about the country. How do we get them to understand that this is their country? This country does not belong to the Barbados Labour Party. It does not belong to Mia Motley. It does not belong to the 30 people in Parliament. This country belongs to you. This is your country. I can get up here, I can talk statistics, I can give you solutions upon solutions about how Barbados should develop. I could tell you if I was doing educational reform, let me tell you how I would do it. White paper, public discussions, town halls, individual meetings with parents, and a final draft. I could tell you how I would do it. I could come and tell you in terms of economic growth and how we grow our country. I'm going to talk about it next Friday, that we will do service zones. We're going to attract the international investment that Karina talks about. We will not use construction as commercial activity and call it economic activity, because building a few buildings is not economic activity. That is commercial activity. That is not growing an economy. You're just lining a few people's pockets who are involved in those projects. That got nothing to do with the wider economy. I could come and tell you how we would fix the job shortages by improving training at the Port Marine, allowing persons to move up the ladder, providing incentives for training programs, for apprenticeships. I can tell you all of them solutions. I can come and tell you how you're gonna put more buses on the road by looking for better buses, improving the bus routes, having connectivity between buses so you don't pay 3 and 4 bus fares. I can come and tell you how you're going to reform the job market and open up the sector for more talent within Barbados. I can tell you how you're going to introduce different levels of qualifications and educations within our system. I can tell you how you're going to reform back-to-work programs for people who are on the breadline and families that are on risk. I can come and tell you all of these great solutions. But at the end of the day, none of this will work unless you claim ownership of this country. Because it is time that you take back your country and stop allowing yourself to cower in fear in this country. It is time that you get up and decide that this is your country and you want your family to have a future in Barbados. It is time that you take ownership not only of the problems of this country, but the solutions and your place within this country. It is time that you recognize that you are somebody in Barbados. I am not sure when it happened. I am not sure when we stopped being somebody in our own country. I am not sure when we started cowering in the dark. I'm not sure when we started being afraid, but it has to stop. And if it has to stop, let it stop tonight. Let the record show we met here at White Rabbit in St. George, Barbados on this day, and we decided that we were not going to be afraid no more. That we decided it was time that we stand up and we take our destiny in our hands. That we decided here at White Rabbit in St. George that Barbados was ours. That we decided that we will take back this country and we will do so and do all the things necessary to ensure that this country had a future. Because I am worried about this country. I am worried about all of you. I am worried about your place in this country. I am worried about your families. These are the things that keep me awake at night. These are the problems that I am trying to think about to solve. These are the things that I'm constantly discussing with my team. I am worried about where we are. Because the reality is, for all the talk about mission critical and objectives in Barbados 2023, it is a lot of rubbish. None of it has been costed. None of it is being shown to be achievable. And the reality is we need to focus on the basics again. Make primary schools work. You got a whole plan here about educational reform, and teachers just got to bring toilet paper, though. Teachers just got to buy crayons for them students, though. Teachers has got to bring in their own books, though. Are you talking about education reform? Have you been to some of these schools recently, in these school plants? Run down, moss on the hardcore, rooms that are falling apart. How are we talking about education reform? Where are the designers and the planners? Where are the people that are going to construct the spaces that our children need to interact in so that they can learn? How can you learn in some of those schools? You can't. And we can tell you how we're going to do all this. Because if I was doing education reform, that is the approach that I would take. I would have the architects working. Because if you're going to design junior schools, you can't just simply turn a school that was a secondary school into a junior school. You have to redesign the whole space. Because there are different age groups now interacting, they require different things. Nobody think about that. I ain't seen nothing here about architectural design and planning. I ain't seen nothing here about school design, and that's a specialty within itself. I wouldn't even pretend to know the intricate details, but I know it has to be done. You've got to bring on a designer. There are people who specialize in school design. There are people who will tell you that the corridor needs to be this wide and that long because it stops bullying. This is real details. There are people that tell you you got lights on this side because if you don't have them, people are more likely to be bullied because their dark spots are spots in the place. There are people that are going to tell you got to create a green space in that corner and not that corner because it encourages learning and free thinking. All this is serious details. But we got a plan that looked like it was scribbled on the back of a napkin, posing as educational reform. You telling me the minister didn't think about these things? How we thinking about them? How we sitting down? We can sit down here in White Rabbit. I bet you, and we could come up with an educational plan. I could lock all y'all in here in this room tonight, and we will produce a document. And you telling me you got 30 people, a cabinet, and this is the best that you could do? And then, and you know what? Let me tell, I speak in the Barbadians tonight. I tell you, I can get a little rough. And you know, I don't blame them. You know why I don't blame them? Because it's you. You allow them. You do it. All I want to do it. The ones that vote for them, the ones that don't vote for them, the ones that stay home, the ones that is now sitting there and take it, this is you. All I want to. This 19-page bunch of foolishness, this is you. Because the only way that a government can treat you with disrespect and disdain and literally stand up for you is when you allow it. Al Barrow said in his mirror image speech in 1986, and he said that of the then Barbados Labour Party government, if the government is treating you with disrespect and buying your votes and doing all these things to you, it is because you are allowing it. So I don't blame them. Of course they're going to feel and get away with it because you're sitting there and taking it. You're taking it every single day. You're taking the cake left, right, and center, and this is what you're doing. Cowering. When you need to stand up straighten your back, flex your arms, and get down there, as Matthew said, and fight for your children, fight for your country, you sitting down taking it. So I don't blame them. I tell you, talking home truths tonight. I don't blame them, I blame you. And it is time that you take your responsibility serious. It is time that this Democratic Labour Party understands and takes its responsibility and assumes its place again as an alternative. It is time that we understand that we have to also straighten up our backs. If you expect Barbadians to take us seriously, we have to take ourselves seriously. The two go hand in hand together. And I issue a challenge tonight to all Barbadians. I issue a challenge to you to do not let your government disrespect you. Because you pay taxes here, you are a member of this society. It is time to get up, to let your voices be heard, Let them be heard in the rum shops, in the churches, in your community groups. It is time to stand up for the future of this country. And if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children and do it for your grandchildren, because they deserve the best of you. And I want to say finally, tonight, here, White Rabbit, Sunday, 21st of May, 2023, we saw the brave ones. And tonight, I challenge you to become a brave one. I challenge you to join them, join us as we traverse this country for the brave ones. And if you are afraid, do not be afraid, because we can lend you some of our energy. We will take some of the arrows from you, but we cannot do this alone. We cannot do this alone. We need you. We need you to join the fight. We need you to be part of retaking our democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, are gone.
Let's put our hands together for President Dr. Ronnie Yearwood.
Something to say that you would allow me to say?
Yeah, sure. I think
Huh?
just go brief.
Good night, everyone. My name is Wilma Curran. I'm from St. Philip West. I sat down here and I listened to the speakers tonight, and Mr. Yearwood called them the brave ones. But I want you to know that I'm one of the brave ones too. When that guy was talking, the guy from St. George, St. James? St. James? Yeah, Dale. He really touched my heart because I was in tourism for a long time. I worked at Zonal for 80 years and the airport for 15. And when he asked the question, what is the thing, I said, the people. And I know that you should get breakfast before you start to work. That was law, but you know, I get it old now, so they got the laws now, Barbados. But anyhow, what I am saying, my birthday will be on Friday. If I live, I will be 74. So I would like all of you to help me to come down and celebrate with me. My son Ronnie, he don't agree to regular, but it's all right. That's my son and Mr. Blackhead and all the other Democratic Party family. I would like them to join with me and help me to celebrate my 74th birthday if I live. Thank you.
So Wilma, on behalf of myself and everyone that spoke tonight, just want to wish you a happy birthday. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Birthday, happy birthday to you.
All right, so as we bring the evening to a close, I know we're all anxious to move on to the next phase of our evening. I just want to say, as our president was speaking, I couldn't help but thinking that in this state of Barbados, this is our way forward. This is our way forward, this Democratic Labour Party, led by our president, Dr. Ronnie Yearwood. So this train is moving, and he gave an impassionate call for us to get on board. So friends, family, let us get on board. There's something for each of us to do. Amen. All right. So I just want to state, I should have stated it earlier, Faith Greaves, who was one of our presenters this evening, she had an unexpected tragedy, and unfortunately, she could not be here with us this evening.
Next Sunday at Lady River, the Christ Church branches, Lady River School. He's on meeting.
Okay, and I just want to, thank you, Steve. Next Sunday, we just want to give you a heads up about the zonal meeting for the Christ Church branches at the Dyden Griffith School. Next Sunday, 5 o'clock. Next week, Sunday, 5 o'clock. One more announcement before we close in prayer, if you could indulge me for just 5 more minutes. The board just wanted to let everyone know that there are fish cakes on sale, pork bites, chicken poppers. So that's the end of that. This is the end of this. Let me just bless you guys. I don't want to, if you could just have your attention for just 30 seconds. And could I ask you to stand with me if that's okay? Stand up and stretch your feet. Stand up and stretch your feet as we close. Mingle, head on home. And awesome. I just want to pray for our comrade and sister Faith as I close. And thank you, Mr. Greaves, for raising the anthem for us earlier. I meant to thank you previously, but it slipped me. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for an eventful evening where we were able, as our president said, bring things to light that were hidden in darkness, because your word does say that things done in the dark will be brought to light. Father, I thank you for using this organization as a tool for the entire of Barbados to bring things that were in darkness to light. Father, I pray that you continue to use this great Democratic Labour Party for the benefit of all Barbadians. Father, we have chosen to stand in the gap tonight, to be the brave ones that will fight for our children, fight for our nation, and to, above all else, glorify you. God, I pray that you strengthen us. I pray that you cover us in your blood. Thank you for those of us that stand here tonight. I ask that you bless their finances. I ask that you place a hedge of protection around each person that is here. Cover them, Yahweh God, I ask. Those that have left and those that are still here, bless them. Bless them in ways unimaginable. And I pray that you continue to use this great institution to do your will in the earth and to champion the cause as our mandate stated by our great founders, to champion the cause for those that can't do it for ourselves in a fashion that would make you proud and that which you are well pleased. Father, we just also want to remember Faith. We don't know exactly what she's going through, but we ask, Holy Spirit, that you wrap your arms around her. Bring her comfort and her family comfort at this time for a situation serious enough to throw her off tonight. Holy Spirit, we thank you for her heart of service as well. And I ask that wherever she is right now, that you be there for her and for those that are experiencing loss. And we thank you. We thank you for your will, and may your will be done tonight in her lives and in the lives of every person here. Cover us, we ask you, Yahweh, in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Go with God.